What is up, everybody? This is the Pinstripe Chronicles. Everybody join in the chat. Let's get the action going on here. So we got some news here. Not so good news because Frankie Montas is hurt, as we know, as we basically knew, and we traded for him. What an absolute disaster of a trade! It looks absolutely awful on our commander in chief, Brian Cashman. He should be ashamed of himself. I'm going to get into that. So what's our fifth starter situation going to be? Is it going to be Herman? Is it going to be Clark Schmidt? Is it going to be somebody from the outside? Maybe there's another candidate, maybe in the minors that we're not sure of that maybe can step up in spring training. Everybody join in the chat. Give your opinions. We got my guys here. I got Rob. I got Tats. Hit the music, Tats, and we'll get started. What is up? What is up? Friday morning. So TFI Friday. So here we go. We got 4 Train Express here. What is up, Uncle Tats, Rob, and Donald? 4 Train Express says I am thinking Herman will fill that role. Yeah, I think Herman's probably got the leg in on that. So I'm gonna start off with passing this off to Rob. Rob, what are your thoughts on the news regarding Frankie Montas, and what your thoughts are in the fifth starter role?
I think it's unfortunate because Montas has such good stuff that he was penciled in as our 5th starter this year, and he had all the opportunity just to kind of ease his way back into the good graces of the fans because he was bad last year. Let's be honest. Let's call it what it was. He was just bad. And had he been healthy this year, he would have just had really no pressure. He could have been even a 3.5 ERA kind of pitcher at the bottom of the rotation. You're like, that's great. But he was hurt at the time of the trade. He ended up re-aggravating the injury. Now he's going to need surgery. We're probably not going to see him at all this year. If we do, we'd be lucky. And so it's an unfortunate circumstance to me. I hate the way it turned out. I still won't tell you that I don't like the trade. I don't like the way the trade turned out, but at the time, I love the trade. So I'm not going to change my opinion on that. But as for the 5th starter, it's Herman or Schmidt, and maybe a guy like Johnny Brito can surprise some people in camp this year. But I'm thinking it's going to be Herman because he was solid there last year. He was just fine as that 5th starter. So inside track goes to Herman, but it could very well be a guy like Brito that surprises us.
Yeah, I think when you look at
that, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, when you look at the trade, this was a guy that everybody wanted when we missed out on Castillo, and now all of a sudden it's the worst trade. They're putting this up there with the Pavano being brought in, on that level of just a disaster. But to Rob's point, if he was able to pitch at some point during the season, and he was putting up serviceable numbers. You said, a 3.5 ERA, and was winning some games and keeping games close. We're all going, all right, it's not what we wanted, but it's better than nothing. So when you get into the situation, we wanted this guy. So now everybody wants to trash Cashman that it's the worst trade. It was just an unfortunate circumstance that he ended up having to have the surgery that they knew about all offseason. Let's not let that slide. I don't know why they waited until now. But I do think that when it comes to who's going to take the spot for him, I agree. I think Herman has the leg up. He's been a good pitcher. We're not looking for Herman to be an ace. We're looking for him to eat some innings and get into the bullpen and keep us in the game, which he's been very good at. So I'm not ready to just go and start hitting the panic button.
Right. So we got some people in the chat here. We got Brad, we got FJ. What is up, everybody? Okay, so first of all, you brought up a couple things here. So you don't think that Cashman's responsible for trading some of our top pitching assets and getting somebody that was clearly injured when we acquired him?
Well, I'm not saying he's absorbed of all the responsibility, but this was a guy that we asked him to trade for. So we can't just now turn and say, well, we didn't want him. I can't believe they made this trade. It doesn't work that way. We can't have it both ways. We can't have them want to go and get a player, and then when it doesn't work out, go, why did you go get that player? We could have the same argument, and part of the frustration, and I really didn't want to bring this back up because it's a dead issue, but it does come into the discussion. When they traded Montgomery for Bader, everybody was saying, now you're just trading for player, you're trading for injured players. Bader was able to get back on the field and be productive in the postseason. So now that's a good trade. But if we never saw Bader last year, do we still feel the same way?
But that's apples and oranges, man. It's different acquiring an outfield player than a player when it's a pitcher, when your shoulder decides if you can pitch or not. And the other thing here that you're kind of missing is that we as fans don't have Montas's injury records. The A's and the Yankees do, right? So we didn't know at the time that Montas was seriously hurt. I thought he was injured when we acquired him. He was injured. That was a fact. But I didn't realize that he needed surgery, and I don't think any of us realized that he actually needed surgery when we acquired him. The only people that should be aware of that is the Yankees medical staff who do the medicals, and the A's, who it's their responsibility to release his medicals to the Yankees when the trade is going through, and Brian Cashman. So somewhere, somehow, something fell apart. Now, I don't know whether being sold as damaged goods. I don't know whether they withheld his medicals. Now, that would be a huge, huge statement right there if that was the case. But if it's actually the case where Brian Cashman made the trade, giving up Waldachuk, Medina, J.P. Sears, and he got back someone who was clearly needing surgery, then Brian Cashman should be fired for that, because that is an absolute, utter dereliction of duty. You are the general manager of the Yankees. It's your responsibility to make sure that the people that you acquire back is healthy enough to contribute. So I think Brian Cashman should be ashamed of himself. It's an absolute disgrace.
Yeah, but you keep talking about the injured player, but he traded for a player that was on the IL, on the 60-day IL with Bader, but he gets a pass on that? That's what I'm trying to – that's where I'm trying to come with.
No, but there's apples and oranges. An outfield player can recover. A shoulder is something that's serious.
Well, Bader was in a walking boot, and there was people that didn't know if he was going to play or not. I think what Montas was – he was hurt. Obviously, they don't get a record and say he's healthy. They did his physical. He probably re-aggravated the injury because you can see when he had a couple of good games, right? He had 2 or 3 solid starts for us, one against the Mets, and I can't remember the other 2 that he had, 2 or 3, but I think he re-aggravated it down the season because he got hurt again, was put back on the IL. That's probably what really did him in. Had that never happened, he probably would have had some sort of procedure this offseason and had him ready to go at the time of camp or maybe the first month. I don't think they traded for a guy that needed surgery at the time. That would have been ridiculous. But I think that he re-aggravated the injury where it got to a point that he just couldn't come back from because they put him on the ALCS roster. We can't forget that. So obviously something was going well enough that they decided to put him on that roster. And I think he pitched in the ALCS, if I'm not mistaken. So he didn't need surgery then, but something got re-aggravated. So that's probably what happened. Maybe he was doing what happened last year with, was it Britton or Schmidt that was trying to come back way too quickly? I think it was Clark Schmidt. He was trying to get back into form too quickly, and he re-aggravated an injury, and he got hurt again. That's probably what happened with Montas. I don't want to say, look, there's a lot of things we can criticize Cashman for. A lot. Because we've done it on this show. But I'm not going to tell you, because I don't know what's going on in that office. I'm not going to tell you he traded for a guy knowing he needed surgery. I don't think he's that stupid. So I understand where you're coming from, Donald, but I highly doubt he said, this guy's going to need surgery in offseason. Give him to me. I really don't think that's the case. I think he got hurt. He was already hurt, and he re-aggravated that injury because you can see it in the way he pitched. You don't just lose your stuff because his stuff is really good. And I don't care about the ballpark because you're telling me that nobody can go from Oakland and pitch well anywhere else. It's happened. Look at Sonny Gray. He left Oakland, went to us, had a solid 2017, and they try to change his mechanics, and he pitched terribly. He leaves, and he becomes a good starter again in Cincinnati. So you can pitch well outside of Oakland. I don't want to say that Cashman is that stupid. He's an idiot for a lot of other reasons, but I can't tell you he's trading for a player that needs to get surgery.
But shouldn't he, if he was negotiating this trade properly, shouldn't he be saying, well, this guy's clearly hurt, right? He's been hurt for much of the year. I'm not going to give you my top pitching assets because he seems like a damaged product, a damaged asset, I should say. Wouldn't you say that that's his responsibility not to give up 3 of our top pitching prospects?
I wouldn't call Sears a pitching prospect, but yeah, look, I'm not saying you're wrong for being frustrated because obviously, Ed, if we can go back in time and go into those negotiations, and if we can be a fly on the wall or something and say, look at his medicals, and if it says that he's hurt, don't make the trade. If we can just break into the office and say, don't do this, Cashman. But we don't know what was going on in there. If he got information that's saying he's hurt and he still made the trade, then obviously go ahead and criticize him.
Yeah.
But we don't know what was going on in there. We can say months down the road now, because this happened in July, we can say now in February, this is a terrible trade. But at the time, none of us were saying that. None of us said, this is a bad move. This is a bad move. Don't get him. Because even you, Donald, were saying you like Montas. He's got good stuff. You like the trade. So I'm not saying that you're wrong for criticizing it now. I'm just personally, I've said this already on the show. I'm not going to go back and say I think it was a bad trade because of what happened. I think he re-aggravated the injury.
He's good. I still think he's got good stuff, and I wanted to believe in the trade, but it was clear that we acquired him when he was hurt, and now that the fact is we've basically never seen him pitch, and he's not going to pitch at all as a Yankee until the end of his contract. That's an absolute indictment. And you are allowed to have hindsight in this regard because obviously as fans, we don't have those medical records. We assumed that Brian Cashman was not completely incompetent and would acquire a pitcher that was actually hurt. But this is not unknown for Brian Cashman because Cashman loves these dudes that are hurt. I mean, what was the last success that he had trading for a pitcher?
It's a hard list. It's a hard list to come by because I want to bring up Ivan's comment here real quick to my point. People are angry with Cashman because his track record with trades for pitchers is not only with Montas but other pitchers he has traded for.
Exactly.
And Ivan and I we guest spotted with Hector in the Morning Brew yesterday afternoon, and part of the discussion that we were having was when a lot of the ire and the distrust in Cashman is because he has the worst track record as a GM when it comes to pitchers. Position players he's okay with, but when it comes to pitchers, he constantly fails. They listed off 15 names of pitchers that he's traded for, and we couldn't find one favorite. So that does speak to his lack of maybe research into these pitchers, in a rush to make a trade where he's not completing his due diligence into their health records.
Which is
I can't argue that he doesn't, that he's perfect. Nobody can say that, he hits it on every time. At the trade deadline, he's been, maybe a C plus B minus type of GM. So when even LI was on the panel too, and we kept saying the pitching has been his problem. He cannot trade for legitimate pitchers when we need them. But part of the other thing to look at is when we were on a roll in the beginning of the year, Montas was not in the equation. He wasn't going to be that pitcher that was going to save us from the depths of the August that we had. It was just the fact that our offense is what went bad. The offense is the one that went flat because the pitching was just fine.
Yeah, L.I. Yankee. I actually kind of agree with him here. That is false. He's a D trade deadline GM. I actually agree with him. I'd give him an
How?
F. He usually misses on trade deadlines.
Oh, I'm going to disagree with that completely because what did we need going into the deadline last year? A left fielder, or bullpen arm or two, a starting pitcher, and maybe even another bat. What did he get us?
Dude, he hasn't made any deals in the previous two trade deadlines when we desperately needed them.
What did he not get Benintendi last year when you wanted Benintendi?
I'm not talking about this press all season, which all failed, by the way. The previous two, when we were desperately needing help, he was like, "Oh no, I'm not giving up my firstborn sons," and all this stuff.
He got Rizzo and Gallo that one year.
And how did that work out? Apart from Rizzo, Gallo was a disaster.
Right, but do you think once again, what are the players that we gave up for Gallo? What are they doing right now?
What's Gallo done for us?
Did we not need it? I'm talking about at the time, again with the hindsight thing. At the time, was Joey Gallo not an all-star that year?
I never wanted Joey Gallo. I told you it was going to be a disaster.
I'm not saying that you did, but I'm saying we needed a bat, right? He got a bat. He got two bats that trade deadline. Who else was available that he would have got?
There were other. Well, he just got Rizzo, who was infinitely better option than writing it out with Joey Gallo.
Right. Nobody saw the Rizzo trade coming, and then it happened right out of nowhere. We got Anthony Rizzo, and it was a great trade, right? I said at the time, I like the Gallo trade. I hate how it turned out, but sometimes players just don't work out here. But 2 deadlines in a row, he made improvements to the roster. So you're going to tell me he didn't make trades at the deadline?
Glenn Otto is in the Rangers rotation, and we are now devoid of pitching prospects. Brian Cashman has traded most of our pitching prospects for people that have failed. How can we even defend this?
Glenn Otto's numbers aren't that good anyway, and we're talking about a number 5 starter right now. We have Cole, Rodon, Nestor's going to be healthy. We have Severino, and it looks like Herman or Schmidt or another one. We have a lot of pitching arms that are going to compete for that fifth. We're talking about a fifth rotation spot right now. If we're talking about a number 1
left fielder, which completely blew up in his face, and he traded him, we got nothing for that. I mean, we can go through the list of absolute, utter atrocities that Brian Cashman has committed on this franchise over the last 2 years. How can we be sitting here defending this?
I've said it plenty of times on this show. I want him gone, but I'm not going to tell you that I think his deadline was bad last year. We needed a left fielder. He got him. Did he plan for an injury? No. He needed a relief pitcher. He got 2. Did he think Efros would get hurt? No. How was that on Brian Cashman? The player got hurt 2 months after the trade.
Well,
how was that on Brian Cashman?
We assumed that he actually would have proper usage of him, but he was having a bat 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th. He had bat him all over the batting order.
And then they put him at the top of the order and he hit, and then he got hurt. Can you plan for that? Can you predict that?
Benintendi was one of the only deals which I liked. Montas was obviously a disaster because he gave up all our pitching prospects for this guy. Efros needed surgery pretty much very quickly after acquiring him. I mean, all of it has failed, man, apart from Bader, which was a really good deal. But I liked the Bader deal at the time as well. Apart from Tats, we all liked that Bader deal because it was smart. That was a smart deal. But the rest,
you still traded for a player that you couldn't utilize. You didn't know if he was going to be able to play that year. Last year we didn't know if he was coming out of the boot. That was the big question: is he going to be ready for the postseason? That's a big if.
Well,
that was my issue with that trade. But also
FJ Cashman traded Montgomery, assuming he would acquire Lopez, and then the Marlins screwed him. Yeah, because the Marlins kept up the price on that. I mean, Cashman's kind of getting found out. Let's be fair. He's hardly pulled a fast one on people.
Li, please don't start with this nonsense. I'm sorry, but Glenn Otto had a 4.64 ERA last year. You're telling me he's better than Herman?
No.
The Rangers just acquired like 6 starting pitchers. You're telling me that they're going to put Glenn Otto in the rotation? They just acquired They got DeGrom, who, by the way, might be hurt again this year. They got Evaldi. They got Perez back on a 1 year. They traded for somebody else, I think. You telling me that we're going to be missing Glenn Otto and his 4.64 ERA right now? You're going to go back to that? Come on. We're talking about a fifth starter spot.
And
the Rangers had to get multiple pitchers.
You characterized it that, what are all these other people doing? And we've already just named one person that's actually in the starting rotation for a team. So it's not like we traded a bag of balls for Joey Gallo. I think
is he pitching well, though? Has he pitched well, though? He's 2 years in the league. Has he pitched well?
Well,
are we missing Glenn Otto right now?
60 ERA in the American League is not that awful.
If we had a pitcher in our rotation with a 4.64 ERA, we'd be screaming for him to get out of the rotation.
Isn't that league average?
Because 4.64?
Yeah.
That's league average?
Starter, I mean, it's not the end of the world.
But you didn't like Tyone last year, and he had an ERA much lower than that.
No, I like Tyone. I always liked Tyone.
You said you could do without Tyone. You said you can do without Montgomery, and he was much better than that. I didn't want Montgomery that much either.
I didn't want Montgomery at all. Montgomery I wasn't a fan of. I like Tyone.
And Montgomery's a lot better than a 4.64 ERA. In fact, he was much lower than that.
Yes, but I'm just saying, your original point was, what has any of the people done for the Rangers? And we've just made the point that one of them isn't starting rotation. And it's not like he's blown up. Like a 4.60 ERA is not the end of the world.
Kind of is. It's not that good. That could be a bullpen arm because he's not working out as a starter.
Well, maybe that's going to be the case, but what we're talking about is the fact that he's given up people that actually could have a shot at either being in our bullpen or as a fifth starter competition, and he traded most of that away.
That was 2 years ago. I mean, look at who they've acquired, though. They had to get John Gray. They had to get DeGrom, Evaldi, Perez is there. Is he even going to be in that rotation? Like, there's a chance he makes it. If not, he's going to be in the minors. They acquired infielders for Joey Gallo as well. And guess what? They signed 2 last year, Seager and Simeon. So they replaced them quickly. Like, I'm not saying that I'm happy he gave away pitching prospects, but we're always talking about to get players, you got to give players up. If you're not going to use them, trade them. And he's done that. And I don't think any of these players that he's traded aside from Waldichuk, that's the only one that I'm like, I really wish we had him back. Everybody else that he traded these last 2 years, I'm not losing sleep over. I'm sorry, I'm not. I love our prospects. If I could, I would keep all of them because I want to see these players come up the system and be good for us. But I'm not going to lose sleep that Glenn Otto and his 4.64 ERA is pitching in the tech, maybe in the rotation for the Rangers, when we're going to probably have Herman or Schmidt as our number 5, which is just fine.
I also liked Ezekiel Duran, who we traded.
But where is he playing for us this year?
Well, we traded him to the Rangers.
I'm saying, where would he play for us this year if he was still with the Rangers?
I'm just saying that it wasn't just Glenn Otto. It's like we did get rid of some prospects.
I just said that they took multiple
bigger package for someone that actually helped us. Joey Gallo did nothing for us.
See, I think where this goes into, we're going into a merry-go-round, is the fans that think that he's done good will die on the hill defending the good that he's done. The fans that think that he's done bad will die on the hill that he's bad. And there's no, aside from, I think we're actually kind of calm right now. We're so quick to dismiss the fans that don't agree with us rather than, a back and forth like this. And we're seeing it in the comments section too. Even Brad brings up, part of one of the things that we don't like about Cashman. Hap was a good trade. The poor decision was re-signing him longer. Same thing we said about Aroldis Chapman. Because when Hap came in, he was 8-0 in his first starts, and just completely just shut down the Red Sox, which helped us pass them. And so you can't, as much as we want to say, in hindsight, but when it comes to sports, it's always about hindsight. This shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Everybody was feeling that you traded for, you didn't go back to the Stanton trade When Castro end up playing? Where's he now?
Prison.
You're not seeing any of these play. There's nobody that was like, how the hell did they trade away that player? When was the last time we said that?
The only one you can really say that I will say it for is Waldachuk, because I thought he is the guy that
he's going to turn into.
I'm just saying that's the one pitching prospect that I wanted to hold on to. But even then, I was like, to get a guy with Montas' stuff, you have to give up something of his caliber. And LI here talking about Glenn Otto could be in the rotation. They signed Heaney as well, who's coming off of a good year. So they literally signed 4 different pitchers in the rotation. Glenn Otto is like the 7th option for them. Okay, so you talk about a bullpen arm. We have several of those. And then you're saying Duran could have been a bench piece? You're talking about a bench player? Come on now. Like, again, I'm not saying I love Brian Cashman because I said it on this show already. I don't want him here anymore. But I'm not going to use his last couple of deadlines as a criticism of him, especially this past one, because he got everything that I asked for as a fan was a left fielder, a starter, 2 bullpen arms, and he got me a center fielder. Had everything worked out, it would have been fantastic. I can't predict injuries. It sucks that Benintendi and F. Ross got hurt. It sucks that Montas was hurt and got hurt again and he's going to be out. But I can't predict injuries to 2 of those players. I can't. I just can't do that.
I really like
I'm not going to tell you
who we traded for Scott Efros.
Again, I think Efros is going to be better for us down the line when he's healthy, but you can't predict the player is going to get hurt. Because if that's the case, you're never going to make a trade. You're never going to sign a player because you're going to go, what if he gets hurt? Then why did we just go sign Carlos Rodon, who's got injury history? That didn't stop him. So you can't be like, what if he gets hurt? I can't do this. Because anybody can get hurt at any time. We can go trade for Brian Reynolds 10 minutes from now, and he could get hurt playing in the spring. He can get hurt playing on opening day. You never know. So I can't use 2 of these 3 players that he got getting hurt in the season after he traded for them as a criticism of Brian Cashman. If he traded for all those guys and they were all hurt at the same time, then yeah, we should be going to Yankee Stadium, finding his office and throwing him out ourselves. But that wasn't the case. The only player that we can really be like, that was a dumb move, is the Montas trade, because if he knew he was hurt, there you go. Bad decision.
The only trade that was a dumb move was that trade. That was the only move that was dumb.
Right. So the rest of them, I think his deadline overall was great. It's just sucked. We're talking about the one trade that could have made a huge impact. Obviously won't make an impact at all because Montas
how was it great though? Because Benintendi wasn't even re-signed. Benintendi didn't even feel loved by the Yankees, so he moved on.
I knew he was going to be we got a rental, right? I wanted him back, but I said I wanted Ian Happ more than Benintendi, but he still got me a left fielder. Whether it was for 3 months or 4 more years, I needed a left fielder for the rest of the season. He got me one.
And my point is, he never used him. He never utilized him properly. So it was a waste.
Let me finish, please. They finally started using him right. Remember, they were batting him first and second. He was hitting. We're like, finally. And then he got hurt like 2 weeks later. And it was almost like, that's Yankee luck right there. When they finally start doing something right, something goes wrong. That was the case all season. And then F. Ross got hurt, and we didn't have him. So can you really criticize the GM for the injury? Did Cashman go to Benintendi and crack him in the knee with the baseball bat and say, guess what? You're on the IL, buddy. No. I forgot what the injury was to Benintendi anyway. I think it was his arm. But whatever. He didn't hurt him personally. He got hurt playing. I can't criticize Brian Cashman for that.
No, but I think I can criticize him for the fact that if you purposely go and trade for someone, shouldn't you use him and utilize him in the best possible way that actually makes best use of his assets? As we were talking about and complaining for long periods, he was using him as like a 5th hitter, and that was never his best asset. So they weren't even utilizing him properly prior to him getting hurt. And then we didn't even bother to re-sign him, and we don't have a left fielder now. So there's a lot of things that we can complain about Brian Cashman with. I mean, to be honest, this trade deadline was a complete disaster apart from acquiring Bader. Now, and then if you were saying the only move that we can criticize him is the Montas trade, well, what about Josh Donaldson and IKF, who they continue to ride like Seabiscuit?
Wasn't a deadline trade, though. We're talking about the deadline.
No, I'm talking about Cashman in general.
Well, yeah,
We're
obviously,
also
I'm not
talking
going to
about
sit here
Corey
and tell you that
Dowdle.
was a good trade with the Twins because it was
That was a
obviously
good
I didn't want the trade at the time.
Now, anybody that thinks that trade with the Twins was a good trade should not be allowed at Yankee Stadium.
Well, Brian Cashman thinks that. Brian Cashman
No,
still
we did
thinks
a whole
it's a good
show
trade.
about how it was time to move on from Cashman. And when they started bringing in, was it Sabian and why did I just space out his name? You know what I'm talking about? Mania. It was a month too late because you already re-signed Cashman rather than bringing in that two-headed monster. We went into that deeply for a couple of shows. How Cashman, he's too comfortable in his shoes, and he does things. Most of the time, he'll get the players that we asked for. We wanted Benintendi. He got hurt. He wasn't used properly. Cashman's just going to pass the buck to Bone, who should have been replaced to begin with. Because he's just going to say, well, the manager makes up the lineup. He's just going to play hot potato with the blame game, and it's just going to keep going downhill. Every job knows that. Shit rolls downhill. Everybody's going to push the blame to Bone. So you have these we wanted Montas when we missed out on Castillo because, well, we can't get rid of Volpe and Peraza and Dominguez. We need those players for the next season to see where they develop. So, it was, a lot of fans thought that was too steep of a price. So then we went to the second person on the list and we wanted Montas because the A's were tearing everything up. The players that we gave up for Montas, we all were in agreement that we were hoping that they would have a future with the Yankees. But we also wanted Montas because Montas was available at the time.
We could have had Castillo. But he could have had Castillo.
Okay, so
if
they went and traded for Castillo, and the cost was Volpe, Peraza, and JP Sears, right, for pitching. Are we okay with that? Not giving up those prospects for them?
Well, at least the Yankees would have picked a direction. But I like FJ's point here. I bash Cashman because he acquires players from the bargain basement, and when the team is embarrassed, he blames the fans. Exactly, that's his go-to. The new thing is the fans are spoiled. It's not my fault. The process is brilliant. I love our process. When he keeps saying process, that's just an easy get out for the fact that he refuses to take any responsibility or accountability for anything. How about Andrew Heaney? You want to talk about really good trade deadline pitching deals? How about Andrew Heaney, who literally single-handedly cost us a home field in the wild card because he kept imploding. I'm sick and I am tired of Brian Cashman. I am sick and I'm tired of people even defending any of this. This is a complete atrocity, and he continues to blame the fans for the fact that he screws up, and he gets a 4-year deal for it. And we have to sit and we have to take it in, and we have to take in the fact that he abuses us by blaming us, the fans. Well, it's your fault.
Yeah, but
Right.
think
Well,
of the content that we're
you
getting.
acquire shitty players. That's not his fault.
I'm never going to tell you that I like Brian Cashman, that I want him to stay, because I've said it too many times on the show. I want him gone. I think it's time to move on because he's been here too long. But my only point is I am not going to criticize him for his last two deadlines, because at the time of the trades, I liked all of them. I'm not going to go back now and say, man, it really sucks. I can criticize him for a lot of other things. Not getting Garrett Cole in a trade when he could have. Not getting Cliff Lee way back in the day when he could have. Letting Hideki Matsui walk in favor of Nick Johnson. There's a lot of things I can criticize Brian Cashman for. But this last deadline, I can't do it. The Donaldson trade should have been the thing that got him kicked off the boat. That should have been it. But if Hal Steinbrenner, who Li says is his best friend, if that's the case and he got him, that's his guy, I guess. I don't know what the hell's going to go on. All I can do as a fan is watch, because Brian Cashman's going to keep opening his mouth and making himself look like a fool. We've talked about it way too much on this show, how we all feel about him. None of us here want him back or wanted him back. But so if you're going to think that I'm defending him personally, no, I still don't want him gone. But in terms of what I think about his deadline, I liked it. and I'm not going to change my opinion about it because of how it turned out. That's all I'm trying to say. There's a lot more I can criticize Brian Cashman about, not this past trade deadline.
Okay. Well, moving on from the trade deadline, because we're going around in circles. Brian Hoke says that we're actually going to roll back the exact same infield alignment with DJ LeMahieu as the rover, Josh Donaldson as the third baseman, IKF possibly being the shortstop, Gleyber Torres at second. Basically, the exact same infield alignment, which failed miserably and spectacularly in the playoffs, miserably and spectacularly all season long. And Brian Cashman continues to be like, oh, let's roll it back. Because what is the definition of insanity? Repeating the same mistakes over and over again, expecting a different result. But the reason is because Brian Cashman refused to take responsibility or accountability for the fact that he has made mistakes. And he will never, ever admit it. So he will continue to write it, even if to its own to the team's detriment and the team's future failure. He will never, ever admit his mistakes, such as Josh Donaldson at third base. What is going on here, man? How could we possibly repeat the same mistake with DJ LeMahieu as the rover, as probably our best infielder defensively?
No, I don't think that. I think as of now, Cashman may have this mindset that he wants to put his feet on the ground and say, "Look, we're gonna run this back." But at the same time, we all know that if Volpe, Pereira, Peraza, and Cabrera tear it up in the spring, they will be in the starting rotation. They will be, starting defensively. Otherwise, there will be a complete outrage at the stadium amongst the fan base.
I'm with you, Li. Don't want to look at the whole baby bomber failure. Whole era was a failure. The only person that's actually done anything was Aaron Judge. Gary Sanchez.
No, but Judge was already here.
Gleyber Torres hasn't worked. It's just the baby bomber era blew up in his face.
All right, so if it wasn't for the cheating scandal and the Yankees in 2017 make it to the World Series, is it still a failure?
Oh,
we didn't lose because of cheating.
Oh, no, you didn't just bring that up.
We didn't lose because of cheating. Come on, don't do that, Tats. We did not lose because the Astros banged on trash cans. We didn't hit, per usual in the postseason, we didn't hit in Houston.
I can't help myself sometimes. But in 2017, if they were able to, if they were able to get a little more successful off of that year, are we still looking at this group the same way? But we're looking at it different. Yeah.
What are you talking? Like 2017 was the only year you can say Cashman's excuses had any water to him, held any water, because he had the opportunity to really follow that up by getting Stanton and Garrett Cole the next offseason. And then guess what? You could have signed Manny Machado, and then the fully operational Death Star would have been a thing. Because if you go, we're going to build it from the farm system. Okay, here's Judge. Here's Sanchez, who was productive after his first 3 years in the league. Here's Severino. Gleyber Torres is coming up, who, even though he wasn't homegrown, he was coming up through our system. Now we're going to add on the NL MVP. Now we're going to get Garrett Cole. Now we're going to get Machado. And guess what? You're not beating us. But he didn't do that. And those were all moves that could have very easily fit into this payroll that he has a budget with. Because the money that Machado's getting, he's giving to Donaldson. He gave to Chapman. Like I said before, there's a lot more I can criticize Cashman for. And these are the moves in this window. He had a chance to make this. And that was a 100-win team in 2018, by the way. Imagine how many more we would have won with Garrett Cole. How many more we would have won in 2019 with Manny Machado. We would have won the World Series in 2019. That much I think I would put money on that. Maybe not 2018 because Boston was riding one of those hot streaks that you just can't get away from. They even beat Houston. But 2019, we beat the Astros at Manny Machado and Garrett Cole. We beat them. And we'd probably go to win the World Series in 2019.
I mean, exactly. Rob's spot on. I mean, listen, you can make the excuse for 2017, fine. But then he acquired the NL MVP the next offseason. And then he convinced Hal Steinbrenner that Garrett Cole was a white whale and that's the only missing piece to us winning a championship. We've struggled to get out of the first round since acquiring the white whale. So obviously it's much bigger than just acquiring Garrett Cole. So like this is all Brian Cashman, man. Like that's the reason why we've not won a championship. And the scary thing was, what did Brian Cashman say last offseason? Oh, I count 2017 as a championship. It's not fair people saying that I've not won since 2009 because we won in 2017. No, you didn't.
I didn't
That's
see
what
a
I'm
trophy.
saying, man. It's just lies and gaslighting. So yeah, Rob is spot on, man. We had the opportunity to put together a hell of a team, but he's kind of passed it by. He could have traded for Garrett Cole by just giving up was Chance Adams. Go Chance Adams, you get Garrett Cole. You refuse to do it. You could have acquired JT Real Muto when he was available for just Gary Sanchez. And what did Gary Sanchez end up getting us? IKF and Josh Donaldson. So this is our terrible general manager. I'm sorry, he is, but he keeps getting a pass because they make it to the playoffs. And congratulations, but is it that much of a big deal when you've got the biggest payroll in baseball along with like two other teams? I mean, yeah, you kind of expect us to compete every year.
Right. If our goal was to just be really good, Brian Cashman would be the best GM in baseball by far.
100%.
I still think, I'm not going to tell you he's bottom 5. I'm not going to tell you he's bottom 10. I'm not going to tell you he's bottom. I still think he's a top 10, maybe 15 GM in the game because you don't put together this kind of a roster by accident. I still think his biggest issue to me is not pulling the trigger on trades when he should, getting rid of certain players when their value is up, not using players the way like they did Peraza. Like that is going to be egregious to me. The way they treated David Garcia, that's egregious to me. That's his biggest issue. And that's where I'm hoping Sabian comes in and takes that role over. Because if he says Peraza's the guy, he better listen to Brian Sabian. He better listen to him. Yeah. Because my issue is not issue, but I don't think Donaldson's going to play every day. I don't. I don't think they can do that, although they're hoping for an improvement. They can't go back with IKF as the starting shortstop. They can't. They have Peraza. They've talked about Volpe. Hal Steinbrenner, before even talking about Aaron Judge this offseason, said, we want Volpe and Peraza in the middle of our infield. So I can't see a world where both of them are in the minors to start the season in favor of IKF. If they do that, then I will be just as angry as everybody else is about the Montas trade about that move. I will come on here and I'll be angry about the way the season's going to go in because I'm excited for baseball. I am. I think the Yankees are going to be really good this year. And it's because I'm excited for Peraza to be there and Volpe to come up. I'm not excited to see IKF. I'm not. I don't want to see him out there. If that's the move, it's a terrible decision. Left field, I've been screaming about getting a left fielder all offseason. They haven't done it. I don't want Cabrera to be the starting left fielder. I think he's a better right fielder and a better backup infielder.
Rob, have you heard of Cashman's ego? I'm kind of scared of Cashman's ego, to be honest, because that's the only thing stopping us from the very wise words that Rob just gave us right there. Here's the thing. Yeah, I was actually really, really excited for the season starting. I know I'm sounding really angry and stuff like that, but the reason is I'm angry is because I'm still not really forgiving him for him blaming the fans last week. I've still not forgiven him for that. I think it was really unacceptable for a general manager of any, well, let's just say any business to blame your clientele. That just doesn't happen. And it only happens from someone who's very protected and within his own job that he can get away with saying these kind of things. I mean, the things that he said last week was egregious. And as you know, because I ranted about it we all ranted about it for an hour last week, because you can't just dismiss fans like they're idiots. Like, we haven't been watching this team for almost 30 years. I mean, the three of us have probably watched this team for like 90 years combined or something like that, right? So I think we have a pretty good idea of how of a good team and an okay team, or a team that gave it a hell of a run. And when he said he gave it a hell of a run and they bat 160 and got swept, I mean, that's that's not giving it a hell of a run. And it's not because we're idiots and spoiled. So the fact that he's saying these things really hurts me because everyone on this chat, everyone content creating, everyone that has a season ticket, everyone that buys a Yankee jersey and goes to Yankee games every other day, they all commit something for this team and they deserve respect for that. And Cashman has no respect for us, and that really hurts me. So yeah, I'm very mad about it, and I'm quite open about it, and I've been ranting about it right now because I'm still pissed. But prior to him saying that, I was excited because I still genuinely believe this team is much better than it was last year. I'm certainly happy to say so. I think this is a good team. I think this team. I had no expectations last year. And I fully expect this team to be a good team, win 95, 100 games again. I have no doubt about that. We've got too much depth and strength. Got Aaron Judge back. Made a decent signing with Rodon. I'm very excited about that. Got a good team. But when Cashman said that it was all the fans' fault, it made me realize that nothing's changed. And then now I'm not as excited. And then when I found out that we've got basically the same infield alignment, and I'm like, oh, okay, so basically all of this is just exactly the same as it's been for the last 5-6 years. And now I'm a little bit worn out by it. I'm worn out by excuses. I really am. I don't like organizations making excuses prior to the season starting. That scares me. That means that they're already setting themselves up to fail or having a narrative for them to fail again. And that's not a good precedent to start on. I don't actually know any other organization that does that. And I mean, obviously the Knicks haven't won since the 70s, but they never make excuses prior to the first opening tip. And, the Giants never make excuses prior to the opening kickoff. It's only the Yankees that continue to make excuses and continue to blame the fans on an annual basis. So, I'm sure everyone in the chat who have other teams that they root for will probably empathize going, you know what? That isn't right. And it really isn't. But we've got 15 minutes to go before the end of our show. Let's try and end it on a positive. Let's talk about the fifth starter situation. We'll go with Rob. Is there anyone in the minors who you think that in spring training could compete for a fifth starter spot or even a bullpen spot?
Bullpen, I think it's pretty much solidified. If anyone's going to make it, it'd be Weissert. But fifth starter, if it's not Schmidt or Herman, Johnny Brito is the guy that I'm looking at.
Okay.
They protected him for the Rule 5 draft, and I think that he's a guy that will see some time this year in the major leagues. I don't know if it's opening on the opening day roster or not, but he's the closest out of the pitching prospects that we have that could make an impact pretty quickly. So I'm excited to see him.
Yeah, no, I'm not too familiar with the minor, with what the hell is how you pronounce his name, Burrito?
But what do you think about the possibility of Michael King being?
I saw that. I don't even. Michael King's not a starting pitcher. He's not. He's a bullpen. He's our eighth inning guy. He could be our closer if we need him.
And who would you have as a possibility
for the fifth starter? I would put Herman at the top, and then Schmidt behind him, depending on how they're doing or how they look during spring training. I think that's what's going to determine it.
And you don't see anybody else in spring training kind of maybe pushing for like
not at this point. If we're going to be taken as a serious contending team, we need players that have already been called up that can be productive. And I think those are the two guys that can get us where our fifth starter is not really a fifth starter, almost like Montgomery.
Well, what about, for instance, Luis Gil and Davy Garcia? Probably Davy Garcia is more of a bullpen guy because he's too small. But what about Luis Gil? We've seen him pitch before.
He's still coming back from injury.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be ready enough.
Okay, but maybe down the line, do you think that he's a possibility?
Maybe next year. But I don't see Gil as a until he's pitching and he's pitching well. I don't think it's fair to the healthy players, to put Hill above them.
I don't think anyone's putting him above him, but like they have options. Randy Vasquez, another guy they protected that could potentially make some noise. David Garcia maybe because he's starting to throw hot or harder again, which could potentially make him more of a bullpen arm, as you just said, Donald. But I still think because Garcia is so young, we keep forgetting I think he's like 23 now, 24, but there's still a chance that he can get even better. But his last 2 years in the minors, post Game 2 gaff in 2020, he's been so bad. But the fact that he's adding some miles per hour to his fastball, maybe there's some promise there. But all in all, probably a long relief guy out of the bullpen. But Brito, Vasquez are the two guys outside of the obvious two, and Schmidt and Herman that could make noise in the spring.
Yeah, what do you know about Vasquez?
They like him a lot. He's got plus stuff. He's probably bottom of the rotation at best. If anything, he's another bullpen arm. Okay. Most of our minor league pitchers were. The only guy that really was projected to be that 3 or above was Waldachuk. Everybody else was more like a 4 or 5 maybe bullpen. And before the injury, Luis Heel was a guy as well. That really sucks because if Heel was hurt, wasn't hurt, we probably never make a trade last year, and we probably hold on to some of these prospects. So that there's a lot of things that happened last year that led to the Montas trade. The uncertainty with Severino and Cortez was kind of reeling back a little bit. Cole was struggling, but I like our arms. We have Will Warren as well in our minor league system, but I don't think he's ready just yet. He might start the season in AAA. But Vasquez and Brito, they got good stuff. They do. If they make some noise in the spring, you heard it here first.
Right. Also, Marinaccio was apparently set his sights on opening day return. He'd be so huge. He was fantastic for us, man, out of the bullpen. Putting 2.05 over ERA over the first 40 games. So he was really fantastic. So update from Luis Heel. He's been tossing from over 100 feet and hopes to throw a bullpen early this spring. So obviously he won't be ready right out the gate, but maybe within 2-3 months, maybe he could be a factor out of the bullpen. I really like Luis Heel because he's got electric stuff. It's just about his command, really. Yeah. His problem is command. It's not stuff. His stuff is fantastic. It's actually unhittable when he locates. It's just locating is the big thing for him. He's kind of got a wind up, which kind of leads to easily kind of losing his rhythm and missing the plate. But if you can find that, I'd be really excited to see more of him. I really like what I see of him. I like, I really like David Garcia. I think he's got a good presence on the mound. He's just a little bit too small, and I don't think he's got the fastball that can compete at the top level. But he's got nice secondary stuff. We've got a new person in the chat here, Burger Brain. Fans complain that the Yankees don't spend enough money. $290 million isn't enough. No, I don't complain that they don't spend enough money. I think I don't blame you there. Montas was a reactionary trade once Castillo was out of reach.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
We talked about that earlier in the show. But being up, you're new to the chat. We'll revisit that one for you really quick. But
better argument is that they have not spent that money very well. Yes, that's the argument. Hal's done everything, as far as I'm concerned. Even brought back Aaron Judge. So I don't have any complaints about the payroll.
Well, I think it's not a matter of have they spent the money well, because I don't think you can say that the Yankees are cheap. I think it's, one of our arguments has always been that they're not spending it on the right players for the right positions. Mm-hmm. And when the offseason this year started, we were seeing that he was really addressing the areas of need, but just didn't go full throttle. I think that's where a lot of the frustrations are setting in.
No, the only position that he should have really pushed for was left field. Yeah, and that was giving Benintendi that extra year. But even then, you could have gone after Conforto. You could have gone and gotten him. That would have been an impact bat, even though he was coming off an injury. But he's got pop. He would have easily hit 25 in Yankee Stadium. You could have gotten him. You could have signed Profar's still out there. You could have signed Profar. He's not. I don't think he's a significant upgrade, but he's better than what we have. So the only position that they didn't really address at all was left field, but they went to every length possible to get Judge back. Rizzo was brought back before you could even think it was the offseason. They got Canely in quickly. So they spent, again, Rodon. We can't forget that they spent big to get Carlos Rodon, who was like the third best pitcher on the market. So this year they spent the money a lot better than they have in years past because they didn't overpay for relief pitchers.
We clearly do want a left fielder because we tried to acquire Varsho.
They wanted Varsho. They were in and probably still in on Reynolds. They want a left fielder. So I don't think they've been saying they're not done for 2 months now. So I think they're going to take this. Remember, when did the A-Rod trade happen? I know it was way back in 2004, but that trade didn't happen until like the spring was starting. So something could still get done. I don't think it will at this point. I think they're going to move forward and hope that a guy like Ortega or maybe even frickin' Aaron frickin' Hicks has a good spring, but I don't like that idea. That's something they're going to have to revisit at the deadline at some point or down the line. Someone has to take off with the job. And Eli could get his wish. It could be Florial.
Do you have any idea what the ask was for Varsho from the Yankees?
Probably Volpe, or because the Blue Jays had to give up their top prospect and Gurriel. So they had to give up a good major league player and a top prospect. So it probably would have been Volpe or Peraza because our top catching prospect is Austin Wells. It would have took more than that. And probably would have had to give him like Torres or something else. I don't know if the Yankees do that for Varsho. I think if they're going to go all out for a left fielder, it would have been Reynolds. But we know they don't want to trade their top guys for Reynolds, so they're not going to do it for Varsho.
I think we really need to make a trade in the spring, man. I mean,
I like McCarthy.
Yeah, you have to do something about this infield alignment. I really don't like this idea of Lynn Mayhew being the rover again. Like even if you just trade Josh Donaldson, it opens up so many possibilities. Or even just trading Gleyber Torres, but I'd rather keep Gleyber Torres if it was the choice between him and Donaldson, because at least Torres has upside. But it opens up so much more flexibility in the infield, and I think that this is an issue. So if it was a case where we could have gotten Varsho for Gleyber Torres, I'm not saying that was the case, but if that was the case, I would have made that trade because at least it kind of frees up space in the infield for Volpe and Peraza.
Yeah, they got to clear up that infield. I think they will. I think at some point this spring, either IKF or Torres could get flipped.
We've got Spence here. We should have explored and engaged other teams about left field. I wish they disclosed that information. That's what they. No, I actually don't blame them for that. It's really not our responsibility to know their information, and also affects future negotiations. You don't want to make public who we're going after, but I sure would like a little bit more openness from the Yankees as to their plans rather than direct names, because you don't want to be accused of tapping up other players but from other teams, but you can certainly be open a little bit more. And at the moment it seems like they're kind of happy with the status quo, and that's an issue for me because the status quo didn't work in the playoffs no matter what Brian Cashman tells us.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll go with final thoughts. Tats, final thoughts.
One of the things that I'm really pissed off about with Cashman is we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for opening day, for pitches and catches for the season to start, and right off the bat, we get an injured player, we get a GM that blows smoke up our ass and throws the manager to the wolves, sitting on the load in a press conference. So I'm really hoping that as the games start to progress and you start to see a lot of the workouts, it'll start looking a lot better for everybody.
Rob, final thoughts.
I'm excited for the season still. I know we have a lot of differing thoughts about certain things today, but I'm not gonna let the idiot Cashman get his comments get to me and take away my excitement for the season. I'm still excited for this team. I think we're gonna win a lot of games, and I think we can very well win a championship this year. So I'm ready for baseball. Can't wait to see what Cole and Rodon do at the top of the rotation. And I'm ready for the kids to take over in the infield. I want to see Volpe soon, and I'm damn sure ready to see Peraza on day one. I can't wait.
Yeah, my final thoughts is I had to release some of the pent up animosity that was accrued after the comments that he's made over the last week or so. So he deserved that, but I'm going to come back more positive next week. We've got spring training, and we'll see how things go. But no, I'm with Rob and with Taz. I think that this Yankee team is going to be very, very good this year, and we'll be all on board, and it's going to be fun, and we want all our fans to like and subscribe and watch us. And even if you don't agree with us, it's cool because that's what we as Yankee fans do. We'll rant, we'll talk about it, and we'll always come to we should come to an agreement that we all just want the best for the team moving forward. So hit us up with your comments, and once again, thank you for tuning in. And as Tats likes to say, Tats,
wear your pinstripes with pride and play hard.
see you next week, people.